Let's go back to 1988. It's Friday. Let's have something mindless. Let's go to 1988 for a film called Cocktail. Now, Cocktail was based on a book written by Haywood Gould, who also wrote the screenplay, which turned out quite differently to his book. The basic story is that of Brian Flanagan, who's played by Thomas Cruise Mapother IV, who has just come out of a spell in the army. He wants to get into business and he wants to find a job, but keeps getting turned down for not having a degree. And he enrolls to study for a business degree and finds a job as a bartender. His boss as a bartender is Doug Coughlin, played by Brian Brown, who is a prominent Australian actor who has starred in The Odd Angry Shot and also played alongside Paul McCartney in Give My Regards to Broad Street. Doug Coughlin is a jaded and older bartender who teaches the younger and eager Brian Flanagan all the tricks of how to be a bartender. They start to work together on an act behind the bar to impress the customers, which involves throwing bottles and catching them as they pour. This is called Flair Bartending and actually exists. Doug has a dream of his own bar, and together Brian and Doug have become successful with their bartending act. Women have become attracted to the young Brian, who enjoys their company. Coral, for example, is a photographer. She and Brian become an item, but Doug sees this as a distraction to their bartending act success, so he comes between them, breaking them up, resulting in a fight between Brian and Doug in the bar. A couple of years go by, and Brian is working at a beach bar at a resort in Jamaica. Obviously one of those very secluded, penned-in resorts in Jamaica, nowhere like anywhere I've ever been in Jamaica, where he meets Jordan, played by Elizabeth Shue, who isn't Reese Witherspoon, because Reese Witherspoon would have only been 12 years old when Cocktail was released. Doug arrives in Jamaica and introduces Brian to his new wife, Kerry, who is rich. The whole middle bit of this film is a bit boring. It's a good spot for making a cup of tea, putting the bins out, or perhaps putting up a new shelf. Haywood Gould wrote his novel basing it on his own experiences as a bartender while he pursued a writing career. He says that the lead character is a composite of a lot of people he met during doing bartending, and including himself. In the book, Brian isn't the fresh youngster played by Thomas Cruise Mapother IV, but a much older character already jaded. When Universal bought the film rights to the story, the studio complained that the screenplay wasn't being written to make the character likeable enough. And when Disney took over the project, the same thing happened. They wanted it to be a lot more likeable and also have a younger lead character. And Haywood fought them every time. But in the end, he realised it would be for the best. It actually would have made a nicer film, a better film, but not be faithful to his own experiences of bartending. There was about 40 different versions of the screenplay in the end. Brian Brown said the original script was a lot darker and one of the best screenplays he's ever read, all about the cult of celebrity. And when Thomas Cruise Mapother IV came on board, the project, a lot of things changed, and as a result the film became a lot more watered down and safer and lighter. Character Kelly, Doug's wife, had a very complex backstory, which was suddenly dumped from the film, so her character is hardly explained at all. In the book, there wasn't the bottle throwing act, but Haywood Gould took Brian Brown and Thomas Cruise Mapother IV out to a bar and pointed out that kind of act behind the bar. And so the actors liked it. They decided to make a big thing of it themselves, and they started tossing bottles around between them and catching them. And as they got good at it, it became a prominent feature of the film. So they got trained in it to do how to do it properly, how to do flair barkeeping properly. In the film, almost all the bottles that the two toss to each other are Bacardi bottles, as a lot of the bottles are more difficult to grip or have odd shapes. And also, if they drop a bottle of Bacardi, it's not that costly compared to a lot of the alternatives. The film got panned by the critics very severely. I think it's because it shows what a compromise the film turned out to be. However, for what it ended up, it's a fairly shallow and fun film. It's harmless. It's probably better than a lot of people remember it for. I personally think it would stand a remake, and perhaps closer to the author's original version of it. Someone should remake it now. It would be a success. Okay, that's Cocktail 1988. Have a good Friday and have a very good weekend, everybody. Thank you very much and good.